All right, today we're here to talk about safety, and I'm Mike Hahn, Director of Safety and Training for Vista Recreation. The Cobrers hired me 11 years ago, and in that time frame, the first 2 years I was doing the safety program, and then I started doing some other things for the organization. In these past 3 years, I've been doing that.
My name's Scott Pittman. I'm an occupational safety and health professional that works for Interwest Insurance Services. Your organization's hired my organization to represent you guys in the commercial insurance market. And I'll tell you, it's a true pleasure to work with this man, Mike Hahn. So, why are you here? Why would you want to listen? Why would you care about this video? So we have just a primary takeaway that we want today, and that takeaway is hazard identification. Mike's going to go over a series of occupational causation injuries in the workers' comp arena, and what we want you to do is we want you to remember one key fact that you can go back to your campsite and make you a better safety person, and that is hazard identification.
Safety starts from the top down, so it really is the CEO that drives the program, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
Point.
And one of the things that's so important is the frequency and the dollars that we meter. We want to know how we're improving. And we know that by our IIPP that we're using, that we've brought the frequency down with our program, and we've reduced the dollars substantially. What used to be $7, we've got down to $1 in terms of what it's costing us.
Great,
so it's working. So what I did is I took the data for 5 years, combining CLM, RRM, and Basecamp, and I put it all into one bucket, and I looked at that. And I tried to find where the big problems were. And so by plowing through that data and doing the analytics, we came up with the top 7. And Scott and I are going to share them with you. And they're going to be in descending order. And what I'd like you to do at this particular moment is grab a pen and a paper, and I'd like you to write down what you think are the top 7 causations for work-related injuries. All right, number 7 on the list is PPE, personal protective equipment. Now, how easy is this? Really, I mean, Warren has given you all the tools you need. All you have to do is use them. And what are we trying to protect? It's your eyes, your lungs, your hands, and your feet. So just ensure that you're using them.
So, you know, it's interesting because personal protective equipment is absolutely critical, but there's a specific way that I look at personal protective equipment. So personal protective equipment really, Mike, is our last-ditch effort to protect an employee. In other words, hi, Mr. Employee, you're going to go in and face a hazard, and I need you to put these gloves on so you don't get hurt. So it's absolutely critical that you're using your personal protective equipment. Make sure it fits okay. Make sure it's not damaged. If you have any personal protective equipment that's not functional, remove that personal protective equipment from your arsenal.
Yeah, we're sending you in to a hazard. We know it's a hazard, and we want you to go deal with it. Just use the equipment you need. Okay, number 6 on the list. You probably didn't get this on your list. It's bites and stings. So these are your bugs in your campground. So you have to know that yellow jackets, tarantula hawks, black widows, paper wasps, and the infamous pus caterpillar. Do you know what a pus caterpillar is?
Pus caterpillar?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of a pus caterpillar. Where do they live?
Oh, they're back east.
Ah.
Yeah.
Ah. So what's the overall theme from today? We just did it a couple minutes ago. Yes, it's hazard identification. So to Mike's point on the pus caterpillar, do you know if you have a pus caterpillar in your campground? So the question I'm going to ask you is, what's in your campground?
Oh, that's good. Samuel Jackson.
Yes, thank you, thank you. In other words, not what's in your wallet, but what's in your campground. Hazard identification, folks. Document your hazards and control them.
All right, number 5 on the list, physical altercations with guests. Can you believe that?
Oh, man.
What kind of world are we living in today? It's nuts. Hosts have been slapped, they've been spit on, they've been punched, they've been tackled.
Wow.
It's absolutely nuts.
Wow. So, Mike, it's a great question that you ask. What kind of world are we living in? So, when we talk about this type of incident in your campground, how are you engaging guests? How are you guys engaging guests when you think that someone has a propensity to be violent? And as what I'd like you to do before you do it, I want you to kind of run through a checklist. And basically, I want you to ask yourself, What kind of person are you? Do you feel that you're a person that can go in there and defuse something? I want you to think about something though that's really important, Mike, and we really need this message to come through to your campground host. Your safety is primary.
Correct.
In no way, shape, or form are you to go engage someone where you would have a fear of being injured, right? No injury. Okay. Next, if we get into a situation where it's truly going to escalate to something violent, you immediately disengage and you contact your LEO.
All right, so Scott, have you ever been going down the freeway in your car and you miss the exit you intended?
Actually, I got to be honest with you, I have.
Yeah.
And what do you think caused that?
Oh, I have a good idea. It's distracted driving.
I think you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
So again, cell phones, folks, cell phones. Number one causation motor vehicle accident is distracted driving.
Yeah, and it's not just the cell phones, guys. I mean, we all, our minds just kind of wander sometimes when we're driving, right? And we're just not paying attention to the fact that we could be driving something 6,000 pounds at 65 miles an hour, right? So you want to focus on what you're doing. So with motor vehicles and golf cart injuries, we have a lot. It's number 4. So there's a lot of work-related injuries that happen with that. But it's not all about, you know, a smash bang on the highway. I mean, it's about getting out of the bed of a pickup, getting in the bed of a pickup, ingress, egress, in and out of golf carts. We actually had one, get this, in a golf cart. They thought they were going to put it in forward, and they actually put it in reverse, and they ran over someone's foot.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, you know, so again, it's that focal point.
So again, what's the theme of today? And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I really need you to retain this. Where are you parking your golf cart? Where are you looking when you step in and out of it? So, number one occupational injury in regards to these vehicles, where we're talking about a 4-wheeled motor vehicle or a utility cart, a golf cart, is stepping in and out of the vehicle. So it's vehicle egress and entrance. Again, hazard identification. Mike, those are really excellent points that you made on causation on motor vehicle accidents. So we've been talking about physical hazards a lot, and these are actual mechanisms of injury. But when we talk about motor vehicle accidents and what we're doing around these utility carts, it really does come down to behaviors. So I have a principle that I really like to talk about, and I call it the silo effect. So what's the silo effect? If you're driving a motor vehicle, this is what we focus on, is driving the motor vehicle. We're not looking at our cell phone. We're not gawking at somebody standing on the corner. We're not looking at an accident, right? Silo effect. If you're driving, be good at driving. If you're cleaning a campground, be good at cleaning a campground. If you're home barbecuing with your family, make the best damn burgers that you can make. It's the silo effect. Stay in that silo, stay focused, you'll have better satisfaction, and you'll absolutely reduce injuries.
Spot on, Scott.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike.
Okay, Scott, we're getting down there. We're at number 3, overexertion. This is improper lifting, pulls and strains, and the primary cause, trash.
Oh, trash? What do you mean trash?
It's how we're removing it from trash cans, how we're disposing the trash in the dumpsters. That's the big culprit here with the overexertion.
Interesting, interesting. You know, it's so interesting about pulls and strains. From all of my other clients, pulls and strains are always number 1. And I find it super interesting that you guys are number 3. I'm pretty interested to see what number 1 and number 2 are, but back to number 3, which is pulls and strains. So overexertion, really, we classify that in the occupational safety and health world as squeeze, squat, push, pull too much. And that's really what it is. And we're connected by soft tissue. And I know, Warren, if you're watching this, you'll appreciate this. And the reason why I'm giving a shout out to Warren is because these are usually our most expensive claims.
Yep.
And they can honestly be the most debilitating claims to you and your staff. So what do we do to protect ourselves in this situation? Is what we do is we evaluate every lift. What does that mean? We know if I have to lift this, then this is something that could cause injury. How do we do it? Do we need to get a buddy system, right? Is there a mechanical advantage that you can use? Do you have a hand truck, a dolly, a cart? Well, we know that you have a golf cart. Could we use our cart in some way? So we think about mechanical advantage, right? After we evaluate that lift. What's the number one rule if you say to yourself, I have to lift this myself? So the old protocols, and we were all taught, you lift with your legs. And the reason why you were taught to lift with your legs is because what you want to do is you want to keep your back straight. But actually, what's even more important than that is keeping a load close to our body. When something's close to me, Mike, I can be pretty strong with it. As I extend from it, it puts more pressure on our lower back. Our backs just aren't designed to work that way. Here's the worst thing you can do. Please share this with your employees back at your campground. The worst thing you can do is lift, extend, and twist at your torso. That rotation of your lower back is how we have a significant occupational and safety injury with the lower back.
Well said, Scott. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, here we are, number two on the list.
Number two.
And you're not going to believe this.
Is?
Dogs.
Dogs?
Dogs. Anybody write that down? Dogs for number two? I sure didn't see that coming.
I tell you, that surprises me too.
Yeah, and we know camp hosts and dogs go together like campfires and s'mores, right? And so dogs are in campgrounds all the time. We just need to be aware and cognizant of what the threats are. What are the challenges? So let me share a story with you. Okay. So we had a host one time that had a little white poodle, little 7-pound teacup little thing, right? And the other camp host came and knocked on the door of her RV, and she opened up the door, and that little teacup poodle jumps out to the point it startled the other host, and she just fell over.
Oh, goodness.
Very substantial claim. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that even though our dogs are very friendly and lovable, you want to make sure that you're not opening up an exposure to somebody else.
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
So. Okay, so Scott, our policy at Vista with dogs, it really depends on the campground, because we do have some campgrounds where dogs are not even allowed in the campground. And so each campground's going to have their own set of rules. But we do have some basic guidelines that we have in a policy that it's important for all the camp hosts to know and understand.
So let's go over a couple of those policies that you should probably have embedded in your campground policies when engaging a canine. Now keep in mind, this is related to occupational injury, so this is our employees. One of our first rules, that's kind of a bedrock rule, is 6-foot leash. Dogs are required to be on leash at all times. Another rule, when you enter a campground, don't pet someone else's dogs, right? So when you enter a campground, there's a high probability that that dog has accepted that area as their home, and they have a propensity to guard that.
Right.
So if you approach them and you want to pet them out of being kind and nice,
because we love dogs.
That's what you do. It's what you do. You can get bit. So you really, again, we want to evaluate situations, and we don't want to rush into things. One last thing. So we're here at Mount Laguna. It's a beautiful campground, and we just watched the campground host here, Beth, talk to these folks camping next to us, and she approached the campers and said, hey, would you please do me a favor? Would you make sure that your dog's on leash at all the time? And they were very accommodating and obliged. And let me tell you what I really liked about that. I liked her delivery, okay? It wasn't from an enforcement perspective. It was from an education perspective. I thought it was a great example.
For all we know, they probably scripted it, okay? But it was done so well. All right, here we are. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The number one
Drum
cause.
roll, please.
It was on cue.
All right, here we are. Number one. Scott, you ready?
I'm ready. Number one.
Number one, slips and trips. Can you believe that? How many of you guys got that down as your number one on your list?
I hope you guys got it.
It's got to be on the list.
It's got to be on the list.
27 work comp claims we had on just this item, and that's why it's number one. So here's the deal, okay? I mean, if I were to ask the millennials that work for us, because we have a lot of millennials that are lifeguards or store clerks or something like that, give me the top 5 things that are important to you in a job. And then if I were to ask the aging workforce, what are the top 5 things? The aging workforce, predominantly camp hosts, they're going to say safety.
Yeah.
They've been around the block. They've recognized that they don't have the balance that they once had. They don't have that strength they had when they were in college and high school. So, that's why it's so important to us that we give you these tools so you can identify these hazards and be prepared. All right, I want to share a story with you, okay? I got to read this. This is a claim that we experienced that it's pretty severe. The claimant was walking in the dark in a parking lot to get cabin keys when she tripped over a bench and flipped over, and her face hit the concrete ground, causing injuries to the head, left side of ribs, face, teeth, and nose.
Ooh.
The compensable body parts were multiple fractures to the rib on the left side, contusions of unspecified front wall of the thorax, sprained left hip, a contusion right lower leg, a cracked tooth, cellulitis right lower extremity, a head contusion, sprain of the lumbar ligaments, a left elbow abrasion, contusion left lower extremity. Scott, this is a person, all this wasn't a car accident. This person was vertical standing here and ended up down here. That's what happened.
So let's go back to something that we previously talked about in this presentation. And I want to go back to my silo effect. So what we have is we have an individual that was going to retrieve something. So it's pretty obvious that the causation of this incident was poor lighting. However, what were they thinking about? So they weren't thinking about hazard that they could encounter in the dark. So if they would have had a flashlight, then they probably would have avoided the injury. So we may have been putting production before safety. So I think it's super important, you know, we're back in our silo. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do effectively. Am I identifying and controlling hazards?
I'm sure she did not want to experience these injuries. I'm sure we didn't want the $185,000 claim.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sure she'll carry a flashlight next time.
Good point, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. We're back at number one again, and it's slips, trips, and falls. I mean, we talk about a claim that cost the organization $185,000. If that doesn't heighten your awareness, I don't know what is. Boy, that, and you know, think about the poor employee that was injured.
No kidding.
So, you know, when we're talking about these slips, trips, and falls from preventative hazards, I'm going to kind of safety geek out on you a little bit here. So really, there's two types of levels. So we have trips and falls from an elevated platform, and then we have trips and falls from the same levels.
What's the difference here?
Well, the difference is, and kind of what's crazy, Mike, is what you uncovered through your analytics, is that your most severe trips and falls are from an elevated platform.
Right.
Let me give you an example of what that is. And really is what it is, it's the steps of an RV. We'll go back to Mike's story that he told about the dog. When someone came to the campground host, I believe it was another host, they had the small white dog, right? Knocked on the door, opened the door, dog came out, other hosts lost their balance, fell, and we had a significant injuries. So the theme of today is what? It's hazard identification. I want you guys to look at these hazards from looking at it from an elevated platform, and then also trips and falls from the same level, which is probably more prevalent from an actual total amount of incidents. And what are those? Those are changes in elevations, where we go from an apron, an asphalt apron, to the dirt, where we have concrete elevation off of the restrooms, okay? Roots, rocks around.
Right.
So we see those, what do we need to do? We need to fix them, quite honestly, is what we need to do. So again, this is number one, slips, trip, and falls. And I really have one question for you guys. What's in your campground, and how are you gonna fix it? I'd like to thank Vista Recreation for the opportunity to do this actually very insightful learning experience with this video. So it's what we'd like to do in the wrap up here. We just want to go over, you know, our three primary workers' comp causations for workers' comp claims, okay? What was number one? Number one was slip, trips, and falls.
That's correct.
What's our preventative for slip, trips, and falls? It's the holy grail, hazard identification, right, folks? We're going to evaluate it from an elevated platform versus a same level platform. What was number two?
Dogs.
Can't believe it. I mean, I'm still a little surprised by dogs. So again, what's our policy in regards to dogs? You know, we're not going to enforce our 6-foot leash laws. We're going to educate our guests on what our policy is, and we're going to ask them to abide by that policy.
And not walk up and pet a strange dog. Yeah, that's
great
key.
point.
Yeah,
Back
okay.
to the boundaries, right? Yeah. And then what was number three?
Overexertion.
Overexertion. So we lift, push, pull, squat, squeeze too much. We're going to identify every lift. We're going to keep loads close to our body. We're going to front face our loads, okay? Right? Overexertion.
Yeah.
No pulls and strains.
Well, this wraps up the analytics for this project that we put together, and I want to thank all of you for participating, number one. And number two, I want to thank the leadership team at Vista. Without the top-down approach with Warren Meyer and Chris Kober, we wouldn't be here doing this, but this is important to them. I also want to thank LeVar Hodge, the photography piece to this. He's the big guy behind the camera you can't see right now. Without him, we wouldn't be doing this.
Great job, LeVar.
Yeah, and then the campground manager, Beth Corsi, here at Mount Laguna. She's just a fantastic person, and it's a beautiful campground. I encourage all of you to come up here. This is gorgeous. I think all of us are going to be back here. And lastly, I want to thank Interwest. It's always a pleasure, my friend, to work with you.
Thank you, Mike.
It really
Very much.
is.
Thank you.
All right.